In this video, I'm going to go ahead and sew my flap onto my zipper here. So I'll go ahead and do that. Something you can do to make it a little bit easier is if you actually want to unzip your zipper, that'll make it a little bit simpler to sew. So I'm going to unzip my zipper and try that out. The other thing is, since I'm sewing a curve to a straight line, something I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the middle. Remember, I have that middle line here, and I'm going to sew my way out, and then I'll start at the middle and do the other side. So I'm going to start at the middle and sew my way out. I will do 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to line up the edge of my presser foot with the edge of my fabric. And again, it's light, but my blue mark is right here, and that's where I'm going to start in the center. So I'll lower that down. I'm going to back stitch here, and then I'll work my way to the end. You can do this with your zipper zipped up if for some reason you can't unzip it. It's just a little bit easier when it's unzipped, but it's possible to do it the other way. So I'm going to back stitch here, and I'll go around here, keeping those two things lined up. Something that helps also with the curve is if I press this button right here, every time I let off my foot pedal like this, it leaves my needle in the fabric. And so if I have to lift up and pull a pin out or adjust anything, then my needle stays in place and I don't lose my spot. So I'm going to do that. So that just helps with the curve. So I can take my pin out. And the curve is where I have to be really careful. If I notice that something, like there's a tuck happening or anything like that, then I can go ahead and adjust. I can put an extra pin in. Those are all helpful things to try if you get a tuck. And like right here, I took my pin out, and you obviously don't want to sew over your pins, but I might go ahead and just put a little pin in for just a second because it's starting to get a little bit of a tuck. So I'll go in and I'll just put a little pin in, and I'll pull it out before I sew over it, but I'm just going to get as close to the pin as I can, then pull it out, and maybe even put it in again a little further down, because the more pins the better and the less likely you are to get a tuck in your fabric. Okay. I'll go ahead and sew down the rest of this, and I'm going to go ahead and backstitch, and I'm done with this half of it. Now I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other half, but first I just want to double check that my zipper still zips up, because if I sewed over my teeth, it's not going to zip up. So right here I can tell that my zipper is zipped up pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and unzip that again so I can sew the other side. This other side, I'm going to trim my threads first, and then I'm going to start at the middle again and work my way out. This time my pins are kind of not in the best place for this, so I'm going to just quickly go ahead and replace my pins. And it helps if they're going perpendicular to the edge, because then you can actually pin on either side and sew on either side, and it doesn't matter because you can still grab your pins as you go. But I'm going to move these so they're perpendicular, meaning 90-degree angles from the edge. That way I can sew a little bit easier on my project. And then I'll make sure my end gets lined up again good here. And pin that in place. Again, I'm going to start where I left off before on my middle line here. I'll backstitch right on top of where I already backstitched, and then I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm just lowering down my needle with my hand wheel to make sure it's exactly where I want it. I'll lower my presser foot, and I'm going to backstitch and sew all the way around. Again, if I'm having troubles, I can always press this button, and that will leave my needle down every time I end sewing. Makes it easier to pull a pin out, and also to adjust anytime you need to adjust. And I'll go ahead and backstitch when I get to the end here. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. That's my back stitch. Forward. There we go. And I do want to press that so it leaves my needle up. Now I can go ahead and trim my threads again, because threads, if you leave them hanging, they're going to get caught in your zipper, and your zipper will not work properly. After I trim those, I can test my project by going ahead and zipping it closed. And if it all zips closed, I know my zipper works. If there's any holes, I can go fix them. Or right here, I have like a little gap, so I could go back and fix that and sew it a little bit closer together. But it looks pretty good overall.